So I'll start with the welcome. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. We are really excited to be hosting our first annual symposium for the Elaine Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation. So we're really glad to have you here to share it with us. So we wanted to also tell you, there's several of you will be here all day, but you'll notice at certain times in the day, there'll be large groups of students coming. So some of the students from both engineering and nursing will be coming here as part of their coursework for the semester. So when you see that, that's what that is. We're excited to have that too, because students are such a big part of our center.
All right. Thank you. So I'm Professor Frank Supp, one of the other co-directors for our center, and we're really excited to have you here today. We are very pleased to welcome our first speaker of the day. Since 2012, Chancellor Subbaswamy has emerged as a popular and well-regarded chancellor for his pursuit of academic excellence, promotion of research, and outreach. His initiatives are aimed at addressing campus climate, diversity, and culture. A physicist by training, Swamy is an elected fellow of the American Physical Society and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he's overseen the opening of new cutting-edge academic and athletic facilities here on campus. Those buildings have included the Design Building, the Physical Sciences Building, and the renovation of the Student Union, which we're in today, which is quite beautiful and lovely, the South College, the Old Chapel. He's made sustainability at campus a priority, and he's focused on strengthening his community relations, supporting area communities, and increasing access to the university's rich academic and research resources. Please welcome Chancellor Kumble Subbaswamy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone awake yet? Thank you for joining us today. Increasingly, solutions for difficult issues are found at the intersection of disciplines. And through the Elaine Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation, we're fueling that movement. We understand engineers are generally, in terms of the way we understand conventional wisdom, engineers are trained to innovate, while nurses touch more products and services than any other healthcare professional. Combining these two areas of expertise, we're creating an environment that allows our researchers, faculty, and students to quickly and effectively develop and then test healthcare solutions. By removing silos and challenging the traditional boundaries of knowledge, we're leading the way in creating the next generation of medical devices, monitoring devices, to better serve practitioners and patients. While a handful of other universities have begun to recognize the importance of nurse-engineer collaboration for healthcare innovation, we are the first ones to develop a center specifically focused on nurse-engineer collaboration. I think that deserves an applause. As we advance innovation and entrepreneurship through interdisciplinary and industry collaborations, we hope our success will serve as a model for other universities and institutions. Of course, like all our successful endeavors, the story of the center begins with some UMass-inspired visionary leadership, not mine. In fact, it's a double dose of UMass inspiration, which began with an alumni couple. Dr. Mike Hallucci, a 1979 alumnus of the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, and his wife, Terry Hallucci, a 1977 alumna of the Elaine Marieb College of Nursing. In 2000, I just want to point out that they're both here. We're really glad that you're here. In 2008, Mike and Terry founded the Hallucci Graduate Fellowships. Really, truly visionary step. These fellowships provided graduate students from both engineering and nursing with annual stipends to support research and clinical health care. Over the years, these fellowships led to a robust collaboration between the two colleges. And in 2021, the Halluccis built on their success with a $1 million seed grant to initiate the development of a center focused on nursing and engineering innovation and to inspire others to join the movement. Later in 2021, we received a transformational gift to name the Elaine Marieb College of Nursing in a testimonial to the visionary leadership of both the Halluccis and alumna Dr. Marieb. The gift included $5 million to establish the Elaine Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation. Now, here's a list of things that have already started to happen directly from the co-directors from whom you heard. I don't want to steal their thunder, but they gave me the list. They have awarded 4 pilot grants to UMass nurse engineer teams. You can learn more about each of these projects during the lunch break poster session today. This summer, we sponsored our first Elaine Marieb Center Institute of Applied Life Sciences, a joint affair with our Institute for Applied Life Sciences, undergraduate summer interns, a first for nursing students. During this paid summer internship, our nurse engineer student teams worked on a variety of healthcare innovation projects, which are also highlighted in the poster session. We have our first Elaine Marieb College of Nursing PhD, who transitioned to the College of Engineering to begin her postdoctoral fellowship on IV smart pump flow rate accuracy. We already have over 15 manuscripts and work published in interdisciplinary journals, including a first joint publication with UMass nursing and engineering faculty and students. We currently have 3 active externally granted funds totaling about more than $3 million. The center is already supporting 4 graduate students, 10 undergraduate students from nursing, engineering, communication, and business, 2 MBA interns, and 1 postdoctoral fellow. How's that for interdisciplinarity? This center is highlighted in a widely recognized webinar on the need for nurse engineers hosted by the University of Pennsylvania Innovation Group. We're working with the Ohio State University to integrate innovation content into the American Association of Critical Care Nurses undergraduate curriculum. And we expect to file our first medical product utility patent by the end of this year. I think this is just an incredible set of accomplishments and an indication of what's to come. So on behalf of the entire university, I thank Mike and Terry Halucci, Elaine Marieb, and the members of the Elaine Nickpon Marieb Charitable Foundation, whose board of directors are sitting right there. Thank you. For their visionary leadership and generosity. Today, we see our revolutionary spirit in action as our researchers, industry partners, innovation leaders, nurse engineers, and students come together to challenge the traditional boundaries of knowledge and to better the human condition. I thank all of them, and I thank the leadership in really fueling this center. Thank you again for joining us, and go UMass.
Well, thank you very much. And our next person that we'd like to hear from is Oriana Beaudet. So Ori wasn't able to join us here in person today. We are so glad to have the opportunity to share her welcome video. So as Vice President of Nursing Innovation for the American Nurses Association, Ori is a tireless advocate for nurse-led innovation. The ANA represents the nation's over 4 million nurses, so they are a very big organization. And Ori has been responsible for numerous initiatives to help support nurses with the skills and opportunities to be healthcare innovation leaders. Furthermore, Ori and the ANA are eager to partner with us here at the Elaine Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation, so we can't wait to see what we might be able to do together. So, Frank's going to start the video.
Nursing ideas have changed how care is delivered, with inventions like the crash cart and phototherapy, but they have also transformed how we live and work. It's an honor to be here welcoming all of you to the inaugural conference for the Elaine Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation. My name is Dr. Oriana Beaudet, and I hope that you are just as excited as me about this work. And I desperately wish that I could be there with you in person right now. The ANA Innovation Team is honored to have your leader, Dr. Karen Giuliano, as a part of our Innovation Advisory Board. It's through this work that we have come to know Karen and of her incredible vision around the work and knowledge of nurses in partnership with and as leaders in the engineering space. Karen, thank you for your leadership and having an innovative spirit partnered with enough courage to begin formally developing resources and education around this emerging area for the profession. Today would not be possible without Dr. Giuliano. Thank you. And to all of you in the audience, whether you are nurses or nursing advocates, buckle your seatbelts because the world has been waiting for nurses to step fully into this space. An aspect of my doctoral work was also done in partnership with engineers. And like many of you, you know the parallels between the way nurses think, the way we're trained. It's very similar to designers and engineers. Nurses have been engineering solutions since our profession started. Our earliest nursing journals are filled with innovations, hacks, and engineered solutions. But nurses have not always been the owners of their own intellectual property or given credit for their brilliance. I know the work of you and all of your teams are going to change this conversation. The next decade is on pace to be one of the most significant moments historically for healthcare and society. Nurses have a very important part in engaging across numerous sectors to create long-term change. Innovation is not a zero-sum game, and there are no shortages of areas to be transformed across healthcare. At ANA Innovation, our goal is to grow the community of nurse innovators because when nurses lead, everyone will win. Enjoy the conference, step out of your comfort zone, introduce yourself to someone you admire, find a moment to share what you're passionate about, and most importantly, have fun. I can't wait to hear updates on this work and your progress and how we can continue to support this work moving forward. Have a great conference.
I want to start by thanking Oriana for that wonderful welcome message, and a huge thanks to Karen Giuliano and Frank Supp for their leadership of this center. As you can see from the connections they've made and the work that's already started, it's been a tremendous start, and we're only at the beginning, so thank you both very much. Good morning, I'm Allison, Vorderstrasse, Dean of the Elaine Marieb College of Nursing, and I'm extremely excited to be here with all of you today for this first symposium hosted by the Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation. In most settings where nursing care is provided, we use many devices, pieces of equipment, and technologies that have been developed and tested by engineers and other professionals in their technical fields of expertise. This leads to products that meet specs and needs, but not with end user input from the patients and the nurses and the end users in our communities. This center will put all of these pieces together to allow for true clinical innovation and problem solving. It also will attract new graduate students and researchers to join us here at UMass Amherst. Just a week ago, when I was meeting with incoming nursing PhD students, I was astounded at how many of them highlighted the center as one of their primary reasons for choosing to study here at UMass. There are very few of these types of interdisciplinary centers, as Swami already pointed out, and we're incredibly proud to be among them in the name of an innovator like Elaine Marieb. And we couldn't do that without an interdisciplinary approach. Engineering has been an incredible partner in this unique path forward.
Thank you, Allison. I'm Sanjay Raman. I'm the Dean of the College of Engineering and a Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering. I'm likewise thrilled to join you all for this inaugural Marieb Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation Symposium. In engineering, we have the concept of inclusive design. This means two things: designing products and systems for the broadest diversity of communities that will interact with or use those products or systems, but also involving the broadest range of communities in the design of those products and systems. Nothing exemplifies inclusive design more than the work of the Marieb Center. We firmly believe that nurses and engineers working together will lead to safer and more efficient healthcare delivery systems. This is much more than nurses providing user feedback to designers. This is nurses and engineers working together at the lab bench in innovative product design teams. So I'm going to echo the Chancellor's remarks and talk about our inspiration of Mike and Terry Halucci. Mike, a 1976 graduate of Electrical and Computer Engineering, and Terry, a 1977 graduate of the Marieb College of Nursing. and both went on to highly successful careers in their respective fields. But I think their partnership enabled them to see the opportunities for nurses and engineers to work together to realize better medical devices and healthcare outcomes. As the Chancellor mentioned, to advance this vision, they established a graduate fellowship program in 2008 that supported multiple graduate students from the College of Engineering and the College of Nursing working on clinical healthcare systems research. And then in 2021, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, the Haluchis made a generous $1 million gift to seed the development of this first-of-its-kind center for nursing and engineering innovation. So please join me again in thanking the Haluchis for their inspiration and leadership. And let me hand it back over to Allison.
So building on the strong foundation established by those fellowships and support, we discussed the Center for Nursing and Engineering with the Elaine Marieb Charitable Foundation. Their enthusiasm and support moved it to a fully supported center with engagement in usability testing with industry partners, many of whom are here with us today, and pilot grant funding for interdisciplinary teams. We are confident that this will lead to students moving into innovative roles, just as Elaine did in her career, and an impact in industry and scientific contributions that will exceed any current interdisciplinary centers in this space. And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker. We would like to introduce Senator Joe Comerford from the Hampshire, Franklin, and Worcester District, representing 24 cities and towns in the Valley, including Amherst. Senator Comerford is a social worker by trade, and prior to her service in the Senate, she worked for a variety of social service organizations in Western Massachusetts. Senator Comerford is the chair of the Joint Committee on Public Health and is the vice chair of the Joint Committee on Higher Education. Please welcome Senator Joe Comerford.
Good morning. It's really good to be with you all. Buckle your seatbelts is right. So I'm so honored to join you today. Thank you so much to Professor Giuliano and Professor Supp for this very kind invitation and for your leadership. I just am really in awe of what I have come to learn about the Elaine Marieb Center, and so grateful to join the deans and the chancellor and others in celebrating your work in the State House. So I prepared a few remarks, and I hope as you listen to them, you understand them as an open door to the ways in which policy is very much like the innovative collaboration space that you're creating here, and an open door to push me as your state senator for the Hampshire, Franklin, Worcester District to do better on behalf of this incredibly, incredibly important program. But I would be terribly remiss if I didn't begin with a huge cheer for UMass Nursing. And I want to go back to the COVID pandemic times, the height of it, where the UMass Nursing rose with each new challenge, day after day, mass vaccinations, mass testing, with the kind of grace and grit that I have come to understand is the hallmark of this program. Not only did you keep the wider University of Massachusetts Amherst community safe, you were the frontline heroes of our region, working long hours under great duress in an ever-changing context. I can tell you without hyperbole, and I am sort of prone to hyperbole, that again and again during the pandemic, I heard in communities across Western Massachusetts, thank God for UMass. Thank God UMass came to the fold. That's a good clap. And I learned yesterday that you're 1 million tests strong. That's got to be a record breaker, and that means safety for people in our region. So I begin by piling on the love and the thanks for your sacrifice and service. And I also want to cheer for the Elaine Marieb Center, which brought together nursers and design experts, for example, to rapidly develop a face shield to address critical PPE shortages, providing a solution at the time when many of us only had questions. The value of your efforts is clear, both in the application of your work, and those posters are astounding, and in the investments made to this program. So it is also clear to me that the work you do to bring people who understand on-the-ground challenges in nursing and patient care together with people trained to develop innovative solutions in engineering, it's improving healthcare across Massachusetts and I know the nation. So again, thank you. This opportunity to speak with you today allowed me to reflect a bit on interdisciplinary cross-sector collaboration between nurses and engineers, of course, but also, as I said earlier, in the state legislature. For my part, I believe that government cannot work unless people make it work. In my job, I have an avenue to write and file and fight for policy and budget priorities, but it's my constituents, many of you, it's advocates, researchers, folks on the front lines who surface the breakthrough urgent ideas. Your inputs make me smarter. The experiences and expertise make the policies I fight for more relevant and, frankly, more successful. That's the secret sauce for advancing policy and budget priorities. It's always synergy, collaboration, and partnership from all affected parties, all fields of knowledge, across all manners of expertise. But as much as my work as a legislator rests on the values we all hold in common, and despite the fact that our state's political system is actually designed to allow for a great deal of deliberative, innovative input from all sides, too often still we work in silos on Beacon Hill. And yet, like you, we look for ways to pierce those silos and bring people with varied experience and expertise together. I'd like to share just 2 quick examples of work to thwart a one-size-fits-all policy and talk about a policy we built from the ground up with a great deal of interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary work, and then I'll offer a couple of healthcare examples. So remember, I said that the state legislature is built to take input. It's what we do. We hold hearings, we meet with experts and advocates, we listen deeply to constituents. And amid this, the pull to siloed work fueled by everything from deadlines to crushing workloads, pressing issues, a lack of diverse expertise central to policy making, not enough staff or organizational resources, and a pretty rigid committee structure leads to policy that threatens not to work for the entire Commonwealth. Much, I would imagine, that the kind of innovation that you're creating here leads to medical advances that will work for a greater number of people. So here are just 2 quick examples. Last spring, the legislature was working on a comprehensive bill to expand voting access. Now, that's arguably very, very good. But the bill that was advanced for consideration in both the House and the Senate left out a great many communities that in fact don't use the kinds of machines in the bill and don't count the votes in the same way that the bill was stipulating that we count them. And without the dogged input of clerks across the Commonwealth, we would have actually put forward a policy and sent it to the governor's desk that didn't work for about 1/3 of the Commonwealth. That's pretty intense when you think of it had made it all the way through the legislature. That's, again, the pull to siloed work without enough of the kind of innovation and collaboration that you're leading here. Those fixes wouldn't have been made without the connection of people with lived experience. Next, I'll just talk about quickly a bill on bugs. Well, it's actually mosquitoes specifically. I call it the bug bill. I never thought I'd tackle and knew nothing about mosquito surveillance and eradication, but a bill filed by the administration landed in my committee, the Joint Committee on Public Health. It was quite a broad bill, and it said essentially you can spray anywhere with whatever you want, anytime, with no oversight until the end of time. And I thought, well, that's a problem. And so we went to work. And environmental experts, farmers, municipalities, public health officials, constituents, and more leapt into formation to influence the policy, each bringing a sharp and unique perspective. We gathered expertise from viral disease interests. We gathered expertise from researchers, entomologists, agriculture, and experts in how the wind can spread a pesticide. It was the committee's job to find a path forward because stalling out and doing nothing was not an option with EEE and West Nile and other mosquito-borne illnesses threatening the health of Commonwealth residents. I have no doubt that many of you also believe that stalling out in your work and doing nothing as you run into difficulties is also not an option either. So what can it look like when policy is built through collaboration and partnerships and cross-disciplinary sharing? And that's the kind of sharing that I invite from this program today. I'll give you one example and then two quick healthcare stories. As the Commonwealth wrestled with the pandemic and its impact on K-12 education, my office was contacted by a number of experts who reached out separately from different disciplines, almost at the same time. We heard from architects and public health leaders, educators, caregivers, superintendents, and more, with a similar clarion call: make school buildings healthier so that we can withstand the crisis, this crisis and crises to come. It was our job to fan those synergistic sparks I talked about earlier and bring these folks together, along with school facility experts and state agencies that build school buildings. We were on a roll when we heard from climate experts that the same goals we had for healthy schools could also match goals for green schools. And so the group expanded to include environmental scientists and advocates. And each time we added a new field of expertise, we had to introduce them to the work, summarize what had already been said and done, and urge them to share their know-how and perspectives again and again and again, so that we could ensure that the best ideas were being heard and seasoned by all, and that they'd rise to the top. And in the end, the whole is so much greater than the sum of its parts. We passed the concept within a larger climate bill, not a healthcare bill, not an education bill that we thought might happen as vehicles. It was a climate bill. And now the same group of folks is implementing the law, because it's not enough to pass a good policy. We have to see it through to implementation. Now, 2 quick healthcare examples. As you well know, the pandemic exposed ugly, rife inequities that have long been present in our Commonwealth, glaring for all to see as the contagion tore through community after community after community. In Massachusetts, people of color got sick disproportionately. They got disproportionately sicker. They filled hospitals disproportionately, and tragically, they died disproportionately. In preparing for the current session, my team and I asked ourselves what our response should be to such rife racial disparities and in health outcomes. And we filed the HEALING Act, or the Health Equity in All Levels of Government Act. This was inspired by nurses who came to us to talk about their frontline service and what they had seen. The bill is a structural response that puts health equity at the core as an organizing principle in the center of every single thing that government does. Our legislative director and public health fellows spoke to experts across the nation in multiple states where they were doing pieces of health equity work in wildly diverse settings. State by state by state, we picked up ideas and pieced them together into a bill that could work for Massachusetts. For us, this work required being willing to see and learn from a pretty high altitude, as one by one, we talked with these experts and forged their ideas into something that we ultimately filed. We had no idea what we would find when we started out. But in the end, we had a powerful Massachusetts-centered response that's right now moving through the legislature. I imagine that across the nation, nursing and engineering, as has been said, don't speak with each other all that often as a matter of course, but here at UMass Amherst, you're doing the kind of revolutionary work of synthesizing the best ideas from your fields of practice into something new and needed. And finally, a story about local public health in a bill titled the State Action for Local Public Health Excellence, or SAPHE, SAFE. This is a story about a long arc of work, which started in 2017, a bipartisan commission charged with addressing the fact that Massachusetts has 351 municipalities and 351 different ways of moving public health forward. In 2017, the state knew that it was problematic. In 2020, when COVID hit, it went from being a problem to being a crisis, as public health protections and public health guidance changed with each zip code. SAFE was the creation of the widest possible range of experts, from public health experts like those here at the University of Massachusetts to municipal government experts and tax experts. Public health experts told us what other states were doing. Local leaders told us what expertise and help they needed and how it should be developed and delivered. State colleagues from DPH told us what they were already doing and how this could fit in. Researchers told us what the gold standards were for public health protections. Fiscal conservatives told us that they wanted an upstream fix that would be sound ethically, of course, a sound ethical policy, but also save us a whole lot of money. And out of these painstaking years-long conversations came a bill passed by both chambers, and we're now negotiating with the governor over final language. Was this a linear process? Oh, not at all. We kept circling back and revising and reconsidering as new inputs emerged. But in the end, this bill is really a thing of beauty, much like I know what you're creating. The lesson here is we're all so lasered in and focused on our disciplines in the legislature, we risk missing the possible. Defying the limits and finding what's possible is at the heart of leaping across disciplines, and I know you know that very well. Economists read science fiction. I've just read that in the New York Times. Sociologists search for metaphors found in literature. School building architects design buildings with the council of students who will fill them. When we expand to wider views, we can see a more expansive horizon. I'm so proud that this center is at UMass Amherst, proud and grateful that you are a driving force in what makes Massachusetts a national leader in healthcare innovation. This center, your work, demonstrated clearly why we must continue at the state level to invest in cutting-edge technology and advances to improve patient care, and why we must never stop reaching to colleagues in wildly diverse fields, and why my door must remain wildly open to your thoughts and ideas and inputs for how the legislature can better serve you. These must all go hand in hand, and you're blazing the trail. Congratulations and thank you so much for your work now and in the days to come. We talked to Dr. Supp, and we're going to riff a little bit, I think, right now, and take some questions, if you like. I'm happy to answer everything I can, and if I can't, maybe the Chancellor can. Anybody want to talk about what's happening in the legislature, or offer your ideas for how better the legislature can serve you?
Yeah, we've got some questions in the back.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you for coming. My question, I'm a PhD student here at UMass, and I'm on my last year. My question was really, when we see the center bringing together nursing and engineering, is there a way that we could increase our visibility to the government? And how would it look like to have a more structured conversation between the government and the technology field here at UMass?
I love that question.
Thank you.
So the question, I think if folks didn't hear it, it was how do we increase the visibility of the kind of work that's happening here? Necessary work that the government should know about, not only to get smarter about, but I would say, you know, we, as Congressman Barbara Lee has said, we put our values in the money that we invest in programs like these. I think it starts by symposiums like this. I think it starts by engaging with local legislators, you know, in the municipal level, state level, and of course our federal delegation, all of whom are, I think, quite devoted to UMass in general, but specifically I agree that this program has to rise to the top. You know, as we consider the kind of healthcare innovations that are critically needed for the 21st century, especially emerging from a pandemic where we saw, again, these disparities that need the kind of innovation and new thought that's being led by this center. So, you know, my mind has been going, of course, in partnership with my sister, Mindy Dahm, who's the state representative for Amherst, who, you know, together, Mindy and I love to lock arms on behalf of UMass. And, you know, so we've started to think about things I haven't talked to Dr. Giuliano or Dr. Supp about yet, but, you know, bringing the program to the legislature, doing, you know, either in-person events or we, you know, we're Zooming all the time these days, where you can talk about the kind of innovations and cross-disciplinary work. I actually think, as I hope my remarks showed, that I think we could use a few lessons in the ways in which you're breaking down the silos, because that's where the real richness in the work comes. And then, of course, you know, there are my colleagues in the legislature, both on the kind of biosciences and tech and the health fields that all, I believe, will really want to know more about this center in the days ahead as you continue to break ground. So it's going to be nothing but fun to convey what I'm learning here and invite them to come and meet you all as I get to on a regular course. And by the way, the Secretary Sutters was here yesterday for the dedication of the Elaine Marieb Center, and I think folks knocked her socks off, frankly. She was buzzing when I had a chance to visit with her during one of her twists and turns through the campus. So I think that it's all promise because of the excellent work happening here at UMass. Thanks for that great question.
All right, we have another question.
Thank you, Senator, for being here. My name is San. I'm a nurse engineer and entrepreneur. I did a bit of policy work in California. That's where I'm out of when I was working with Rokana in disseminating innovation across the country. That's something I'm passionate about. So I could talk to you for half an hour, if not longer, but I'll try to keep it brief with two questions for you.
Sure.
One is, as we think about delivering, but actually making digital health technologies and solutions more accessible to community, one of the biggest barriers is reimbursement for those. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts about addressing some of those barriers and making digital pills, digital solutions, or technology solutions more accessible to community? That's first question. And second question is more home-based, is about what are your thoughts about how can we do more of academic and public health partnerships in terms of more on the ground access? Like, when students are going through programs, can we involve mentors that are working in the community, like especially like at graduate school level, people who are working in the community who are part of their curriculum and part of their learning and projects. So projects are developed for community use or addressing community needs rather than something that, we think would be helpful. And I think that way we'll be able to address more of the challenges that are on the ground and build deeper connection with academia and build better leaders and students who will be ready to work in the workforce and know about the challenges that exist and can address it.
Brilliant questions. And I'll come back and give you my cell, and maybe we can have coffee on campus, which would be a delight. So first about reimbursement. So reimbursement challenges are across health disciplines. I'm sure many of you know this. And this session in the legislature, we were able to tackle reimbursement parity and reimbursement advances only in mental health care. And that's, of course, important, and reimbursement parity. But it isn't what you're talking about here in terms of the sort of advances in both in locking in digital medicine, telehealth medicine, and then also in the reimbursement parity for that. I will say that the Senate passed a bill that was pretty beautiful and would have made some significant advances there. We weren't successful in getting it passed in the House and therefore to the government, right? It takes both of us, both chambers. However, I know House members also care deeply about this, and it's top of the list for going back in next session. And then in terms of, your second question, which was really broad-ranging, and, advancing the notion of this partnership with academia and the kind of advances in healthcare. I will say, actually, that the HEALING Act that I filed, I didn't go into it, but it actually has a whole big band of work for academia, because I do believe that if we bring, the innovation, the knowledge-based economy here in the Commonwealth into the health equity conversation, we're going to become so much smarter, both about how to create policies that are truly health equity centered and then how to measure them, how to challenge them to be better over time through evaluation. And so I agree with you. And so the work gets done, my job gets done two different ways on behalf of UMass, and the ideas that you have, one is a policy line where either I file policy or I look for policies that are coming that have great synergy with the kind of values and work happening here, or I actually fight for the kind of money that UMass needs and deserves, and other institutions, in the public sector need and deserve to do this work. And I'll just say that I welcome further conversation, both about the policy end, what kind of policy innovation, policy change could lead to academia being more at the center of the kind of innovative spirit that you're talking about. So I welcome that, and I'll have to think more about how to get that done with your good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Oh,
there's one
on the
over
other
there.
side. Of course. Getting my steps in today.
Thank you very much. I know that you're a great advocate for the SAFE Act, and I appreciate that, but I don't think everybody knows really how much the SAFE Act has helped communities with public health.
Thank you so much. So we're talking about the SAFE Act, that was State Action for Local Public Health Excellence. So I didn't say this in my remarks. What I was talking about was SAFE 2. We're going to get super wonky now. SAFE 2.0 is the bill that we're moving now through, a process which is pretty hard right now. We've run aground a little bit, but I know we're going to get it across the finish line, which really builds on the work of SAFE 1, State Action for Local Public Health Excellence 1, where we said, look, local community public health has not benefited at all from state investment. None. It's a zip code only set of protections. So if you're in a city or town that has the resources or values it, and sometimes it's either or both, but a lot of this is resource driven, smaller communities, poorer communities cannot and have not had the kinds of similar protections as, I call them the W's out east, right? Winchester, Wellesley, the sort of bigger, wealthier communities, and that's simply unfair. And it's one of the reasons that we were completely unprepared in the Commonwealth when COVID hit. That's why we had to set up a whole other structure. We could go into at great length whether I agree with that or not, but the government chose to set up another structure because we didn't have a foundation of apples-to-apples public health across the Commonwealth. It's not because local public health leaders didn't want it. It's not because they hadn't been training for it. It's simply because there weren't enough resources and personnel and infrastructure ready to do the kind of work that needed to be done. And so instead we had, initially responses that were much more sort of bulk delivery, and we know that public health actually can do bulk delivery, but it also does sector by sector, person by person delivery, which makes it possible for people who are harder to reach or on the margins or traditionally marginalized, to get the same kind of protections. So the good thing that the state did is we've invested a great deal of money in local health, and that came with this first SAFE.1 bill, where now there are these collaborations happening and really benefiting Western Mass because we have these small communities, so they can collaborate, for all of their public health services, or they can just direct dial for one kind of public health, and they're putting together these networks of services and creating really a tapestry of response on the state's dime, as it should be. And then we did develop a funding proposal, I'll say, to get $200 million in ARPA spending, which I helped lead for the Commonwealth. And that money will come to local communities to continue that innovative cross-town, city and town sharing, but it's also going to change the way we collect data because you can't measure what you can't see. And so right now we're not measuring or counting the kind of public health interventions that we do in the Commonwealth in the same way. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do some accreditation and some training, and continue to foster what we hope are really these rich partnerships. So thank you. We still have a long way to go. We have to pass SAFE 2, which begins to really concretize this work. And then, of course, once we have a public health sector that's funded and wired together, trained, and really counting and really measuring its impact, then we have to start moving the needle on all of the things that public health cares about. So that's SAFE 3. But I won't start counting that yet until we do SAFE 2. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we have one more question here.
These are great questions.
Thank you, Senator Comerford. I'm Ray Walker. I'm faculty for the Elaine Marieb College of Nursing. And you've been speaking so eloquently to this idea of, the design process and really communities driving that. I'm curious, just from your experience, if you could speak to, so much of what you all do, life is really on the line, especially for groups and communities that might already be marginalized in terms of having access to services and support. What are the constituencies or groups that you all have most seen most often in some of these policy-making forums either be excluded and or are there examples of spaces where communities and policymakers have done a really good job of centering, those who are perhaps most on the margins in the process?
Really good question, thank you. As I mentioned in my remarks, I really do think that the legislature has to be bottom up. If we are not really deeply rooted, all of us who serve, in our local communities, getting our ideas, our inspiration, being held accountable by and from the people who elect us to serve, we're not doing our job. If we're listening to some other people, then our ear is tuned in the wrong direction. Your question, I'll go with the second part of your good question and talk about where I saw this done, where I saw real deep listening, real direction setting, real accountability from people who are often marginalized or targeted, underserved. We passed, and it was signed into law, the Work and Family Mobility Act, which was otherwise known as the Driver's License Bill in Massachusetts. That was a beautiful piece of policy. It was decades long in getting to the finish line, and it would not have happened if it weren't for an immigrant base at the center of that policy, and then a whole constellation of allies who called the bill their own, meaning we saw this first as an immigrant rights bill. Why can't immigrants coming to this country get a driver's license to allow them to go to work, to take their kids to school, to go to the doctor? We needed that as a bit of justice, as a bit of forward momentum. But then public health experts piled on and said, no way, this is of course an immigrant rights bill, but it's also a public health bill. During COVID, if you were not able to get into smaller forms of transportation, you were disproportionately exposed to a virus. And many of the frontline workforce, many in the healthcare industry, really were so desperately needed to remain healthy at this time, and we were disproportionately disadvantaging and risking the health of critical members of the workforce. So the public health folks said, no way, this is ours. And then the public safety said, well, no, actually, this is an immigrant rights bill. Yes, it's a public health bill. Yes, but it's also a public safety bill because we want people to have we want people to have car insurance and to have driver's tests, and this is a good thing. And then, the economic development people said, no, this is an economic development bill. And so, but it was the immigrant community at the center welcoming in all of these people as allies and helping to expand this, what ended up being a giant tent of policy advocacy moving together. And it was so beautiful that we never lost sight, none of us ever lost sight of why really we were doing this, which was a racial justice immigrant rights bill. And I will say the flip side of that is that and it's tragic when it happens, but policy is often made without really truly considering the impact and the impact of the people most affected by it. And that can happen a number of different ways. There's the transportation divide to Beacon Hill sometimes marginalizes people from out west. The digital divide sometimes marginalizes people. Certainly, discretionary time is at a premium these days as people work 2-3 jobs just to feed their families and advance the well-being of those they're caring for. So the kind of way in which we can enter into a democratic relationship is threatened, and all these folks are sometimes too often left aside. And when they are left aside, those two examples, and I actually could have given you dozens, happen where policies are coming to the floor, about to be voted on, and we hear like a little hand raised from a clerk in Shutesbury saying, actually, hi Joe, we have wooden crank boxes here. We don't have digital machines. You've left us out about 25% of the Commonwealth doesn't have digital machines yet. And then we have to put a big halt on everything and hopefully redo it. But sometimes we don't redo it. Sometimes these folks are left out of the policy equation. I told you 2 stories where they were, thanks to great advocacy, people's voices were heard, but a lot of times we pass and sign policy that doesn't do it, and so we have to go back in again to the process, which again can take years. So it's something I worry about all the time, and it's something I think all legislators, many of my colleagues care about too, and we try to thwart the times where silos happen and really make sure that the policy making is inclusive. I think we're done. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Senator.